told you a single clove of garlic could multiply into a small fortune if you do it right. By saving your own seed year after year, you can compound your profits and turn just a small handful of cloves into a thriving, profitable small farm enterprise. Garlic is one of my favorite crops to grow. It's easy in some ways. You plant it in the fall, harvest it the next summer, and there's little maintenance in between. But to grow a successful, profitable crop, you need to follow a few key strategies. From planting dates to knowing when to harvest, I've faced pests, diseases, and even total failures. But over time, I've developed a system that works. And in this video, I'll show you how to sterilize your seed stock, prepare the soil, fertilize, plant, protect, harvest, cure, and save your own seed so you can grow garlic that thrives year after year. If you're new here, I'm Chef Mikey. I'm a former executive chef turned urban farmer, and garlic is the crop that truly inspired me to start growing my own food. After more than 20 years in the restaurant industry, I was used to seeing garlic come in tubs, already peeled and not very exciting. But then I discovered a variety called music at my local farmer's market. It's a hardneck garlic that originated in Italy and made its way to Canada in the 1980s thanks to a garlic enthusiast named Al Music. Known for its large, easy-to-peel cloves and incredible flavor, it's no surprise it's become a favorite amongst market farmers. It's my absolute favorite crop to grow. When I first started growing garlic, I assumed it would take about 8 months from planting a clove to pulling up a perfect head. But I quickly realized it's not about the amount of time, it's about the right conditions. In my climate, no matter whether I plant in October, December, or even January, it's usually ready by early to mid-June. In more northern climates, it can indeed take 8 months or longer, but here, planting too early caused my garlic to grow too fast, and the tops get damaged by winter. Now I wait until about December 20th, and I've been seeing much better results. Now, spacing and fertility turned out to be just as critical. Garlic is a heavy feeder, and overcrowding can really stunt its growth. Even after I fixed my planting date, spacing, and fertility regimen, then I found some of my bulbs rotting in the ground. A test from my local extension office revealed garlic bloat nematodes, probably introduced through contaminated seed. Now, I sterilize my seed and save my own seed stock year after year. I also manage common pests like allium leaf miners and onion maggots with insect netting, and by experimenting with interplanting flowering crops to attract predator insects. It took years of trial and error, but I finally figured out a system that reliably produces healthy, market-ready garlic. Now let's dive into exactly how I plant, fertilize, and protect my garlic so you can avoid my mistakes and grow your best crop yet. I actually grow my garlic on a leased property rather than in my backyard. It takes up a lot of space and stays in the ground for a long time, so it just didn't make sense to use my most valuable real estate at home. The plot I'm using this year was basically a blank slate about a year ago. I started by tarping the entire area until late February, which helped kill off any of the weeds and gave me a clean start. After pulling off the tarps, I planted a cover crop mix of peas, oats, and mustard. That cover crop fed the soil and once terminated acted as a sheet mulch to suppress future weeds. We built beds right on top of that mulch and planted winter squash there for the summer. Then after harvesting the squash in September, I tarped the plot again to keep it weed-free until garlic planting time. In early December, I pulled back the tarps and broad-forked the beds to help with drainage. My soil is heavy clay that can get really compacted. After loosening it up, I added a solid 6 inches of fresh compost on top and laid down wood chips in the walkways. This created a nutrient-rich, weed-free environment that's perfect for planting garlic. To prep my seed garlic, I started by gently breaking each bulb into individual cloves, keeping the skins on if I can, but don't worry if a few cloves lose their skins. I've never seen any negative effects from planting them that way. Next, I soak the garlic in cheap vodka for about 20 minutes. The vodka helps kill off garlic bloat nematodes, bulb mites, and any other pathogens that might be lingering on the cloves, and it usually meets organic standards. Although I use organic practices, I'm not formally certified, so cheap vodka works just fine for me. After the soak, I strain the garlic and spread the cloves on my greens drying rack to let the alcohol evaporate. Meanwhile, I make a compost tea by steeping a pouch of compost in a 5-gallon bucket of rainwater, then adding a couple cups of fish emulsion. I also mixed in a fair amount of mycorrhizal inoculant called mycogasm that my friend Heber makes. I've had great results with it on my tomatoes, and I'm excited to see how it benefits my garlic. Finally, I place the dried cloves into these old olive containers that restaurants give me for free. I pour the compost tea until they're fully submerged. I snap on the lids and I let the cloves soak while I drive out to my leased property, about 30 minutes away. By the time I arrive, they've been in the solution for roughly an hour. Then I just pour off the liquid before planting. We prepped the beds a few days earlier, so everything was ready when we arrived with our pre-soaked cloves. Each bed is 30 inches wide and 50 feet long with 18-inch walkways. We use a 100-foot tape measure to easily measure each 50-foot bed. Just stretch it down the center and mark off 3 rows at 6-inch spacing. We place the cloves on top of the compost in their spots, making sure each one is root end down and pointy side up. We're planting into about 6 inches of compost, ensuring that each clove's root end touches the native soil below. Over time, the compost will settle, so we bury them just deep enough to allow for that without risking rot in the clay or making the harvest too hard. Once everything's lined up, we simply push each clove in with our fingers or a small digging tool, then moving on to the next row. In my Tennessee climate, I don't do much after planting. I don't bother irrigating or adding extra mulch. Our winters are relatively mild, and straw or hay can introduce weed seeds. We also get enough rain in the winter and spring that I don't need to set up irrigation. I usually see garlic shoots poking through around February. From there, maintenance is minimal. A wire weeder once or twice in the spring helps keep weeds in check, and the deep compost mulch does the rest. As the weather warms, watch out for pests like onion maggots and allium leaf miners, which can devastate a crop. In early April, you can cover the garlic beds with insect netting so the adult flies can't lay eggs on your plants. Complete exclusion is the best prevention. Organic sprays like spinosad can also work, but it's less work to just cover it once than spray multiple times, and let's face it, nobody wants garlic that's been sprayed. About 4 weeks before harvest, you'll see a curled shoot emerging from the center of each garlic plant. That's the scape, basically the garlic flower. If left alone, it produces seeds, though it can take years of replanting to get a full bulb that way. Removing the scapes can increase your bulb size by up to 25% because it sends the plant's energy back down to the bulb. Plus, the scapes are edible and can be a tasty and profitable early season crop. After removing the scapes, watch the bottom leaves. When the lowest 3 to 5 leaves have turned brown and the rest are still healthy, it's time to harvest. Waiting until all the leaves die can degrade the bulbs and hurt their storage potential. Weather can also push your timing. If heavy rain is coming and I'm close to harvest, I'd rather pull them early than risk rot or pest issues. To harvest, I simply pull each bulb by the stem. Because I plant in a deep compost mulch rather than heavy soil, they come up easily. Then we trim the tops down to about 6 to 10 inches, just pile them in crates, and then we take them back to the home base for drying and curing. We just leave the trimmed tops in the field for now, since we won't be planting anything else here until fall. Drying and curing is the most critical step. After all those months of work, you don't want your garlic to spoil in storage. Properly cured garlic can last up to a year, but if you do it wrong, you'll lose a lot of your harvest. Early on, I tried drying my garlic outdoors under cover for a couple of weeks, but Tennessee's heat and humidity in June are a perfect recipe for mold. It's also tempting to rinse off your bulbs and reveal that pretty purple striping, but washing can ruin their ability to store. Instead, I just brush off any loose dirt by hand, leaving as much of the papery skin intact as possible. I'll also keep 6 to 10 inches of stem on each bulb so it can dry and help protect the bulb from passing pathogens entering. Since I don't have space to hang my garlic in bunches, I use a 4x8 grow tent equipped with a ventilation system, air filter, and a dehumidifier. I spread the bulbs in a single layer on wire shelving. The dehumidifier pulls out the moisture while the ventilation system brings in fresh air and filters out the strong garlic aroma from the house. I check on them periodically over the next 2 weeks to make sure they don't show any signs of mold or rot. Once the skins turn papery, I trim the roots and the stems a bit more, peel off the outermost layer, and store the bulbs in mesh bags. For long-term storage, I keep them in my office, which stays around 70 degrees and 50% humidity. Ideally, you'd want 60 degrees and 60% humidity, but that's hard to maintain in most homes. Right now, I only sell a small amount of garlic each year because I'm building up my own seed stock. My goal is to offer certified seed garlic in the future, and I'm probably a year or two from hitting that milestone. In the meantime, I hope you'll stick around and follow along, and good luck with your own garlic harvest.